Ashcroft is a village in the Thompson-Nicola Regional District of British Columbia's interior. From the west end of Kamloops Lake, Ashcroft is 30 kilometers or 19 miles downstream at the confluence of the Bonaparte and Thompson Rivers. At the 2021 census, Ashcroft had a population of almost 1,700. Ashcroft was named after the nearby Ashcroft Manor on Ashcroft Ranch, founded in the 1860s during the Cariboo Gold Rush by two English brothers with the surname Cornwall. The brothers emigrated to Canada from Ashcroft at Newington Bagpath in Gloucestershire. The brothers had come in search of gold. Discouraged by stories of failures, they gave gold seekers a place to saddle their horses and sold flour to packers and miners. Ashcroft became a major stop for trains where mining supplies were dropped off. The Canadian Pacific Railway reached Ashcroft in 1884. It became a division point and service center for the rail line. The provincial government built a bridge across the river in 1890 so travelers could ride the train to Ashcroft, then a stagecoach going north. After this, the locals began to rely on farming. Despite dry conditions, farming was successful, thanks to the Thompson River and hot sun. Ashcroft has a dry, semi-arid climate. In summer, Ashcroft is often among the hot spots in British Columbia and has the second highest temperature ever recorded in Canada. Winters are short and moderate with light snowfall. Ashcroft's economy includes mining, manufacturing, transportation, and agriculture. Tourism is an economic force, promoting historical buildings and a legacy as the start of the Gold Rush Trail. The film industry discovered this surrounding desert-like landscape could stand in for the Old West and the Middle East. The first aircraft arrived at Ashcroft in late October 1920. It arrived on a CPR flat car en route from Vancouver to Kamloops. The Curtiss HS-2L was on a promotional venture for the fledgling Canada Air Board Dominion Air Station at Jericho Beach. It was flown by that station's superintendent, Major Claire McLaurin, in a survey for the BC Forest Service. It is uncertain when the first aircraft landed at Ashcroft, but by the early 1930s, it was becoming a port of call for itinerant aircraft. In the latter part of 1930, Humphrey O. Madden and Joe Bertolino established a flight training school near Kamloops using a Fleet Model 2. The pair would fly to nearby communities, put on aerial exhibitions, and offer rides for cash. They were known to have barnstormed Merritt, Princeton, Penticton, and quite likely performed over Ashcroft. The first landing author Chris Waite was able to identify was on December 19, 1932. Pilot R.L. Coote, known as Ginger, arrived from Barkerville with 3 mining officials. They were planning to catch a CPR train to Vancouver. Coote made the flight in 3 hours and 40 minutes in poor visibility with snow showers, so his passengers could catch a southbound train. The flight was made in a Ryan B-1 Brougham, which Coote had bought about 6.5 months earlier in Bellingham. On January 30th, 1933, a Waco Model ATO arrived from Quesnel, where the aircraft had been holding for weather to improve so it could enter a search for Ginger Coote. For 12 days, Coote had been unaccounted for on a flight to Findlay Forks. Coote showed up as soon as the weather cleared and arrived back at Quesnel. Coote made an arrangement with Grant McConaughey in order to get an airmail contract. Coote had applied in his name for the Ashcroft to Fort St. John route. Coote was made district manager of United Air Transport. With the contract secured, the first flight was in mid-January of 1938. The flight was an historic event, departing mid-morning from Barnes Lake, south of Ashcroft. The inaugural flight was in a Waco Custom Model ZQC-6 on skis, flown by Sheldon Luck with engineer Dick Green and, of course, Ginger Coote. They flew to Williams Lake, where after formalities, it was bound for Quesnel, Prince George, and Fort St. John, with the MLA for Cariboo on board. The first mail flights left from Barnes Lake. After the Ashcroft Board of Trade inspired locals to volunteer to clear sagebrush and rocks, that strip north of Ashcroft Manor, known as Cornwall Field, came into use. The Ashcroft Journal reported the construction party had begun in early February 1938. The service continued from Ashcroft until August 1st, 1938, using various aircraft. A Fairchild 51, 2 more Wacos, and occasionally a tri-motor Ford 6 ATS Special and a Fokker Universal. After August 1st, the flight started from Vancouver. In mid-February 1938, United Air Transport pilot Len Wagon landed a Fokker Universal at Cornwall Field at Ashcroft Manor. The Ashcroft Journal reported that Wagon had flown very low several times over the village before landing. At this time, another Waco Custom ZQC-6 landed at Cornwall Field. This aircraft, flown by Bill Holland with owner George Simmons of Northern Airways, was en route to Carcross, Yukon, where it would be based. This aircraft had been bought by Northern Airways and registered in Canada at Vancouver in January 1938. A few days later, Northern Airways service via Ashcroft to the Yukon started. Eventually, this service was discontinued. Aircraft continued to use Cornwall Field, but to a lesser degree. A Stinson SM-8A Special, belonging to a Fairbanks with the initial J, president of Paramount Studios of Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood, California, touched down there, breaking a landing strut. Fairbanks was delayed while parts were obtained. Cornwall Field is close to the Manor buildings, just north of the highway. In 1939, the Department of Transport erected a radio range station there with its antenna on the hill to the south. DOT staff provided weather and communications to itinerant aircraft until 1966, when these services were moved to Kamloops. The radio range at Ashcroft was an integral part of Amber 61 Airway from Princeton to Prince George. It provided the primary approach aid for an instrument approach to Kamloops until 1975, when a localizer approach aid was installed at the Kamloops Airport. Flight Lieutenant George Williamson recalls an emergency strip close to the station buildings at Ashcroft Manor alongside the Trans-Canada Highway. The RCAF Airway Manual of 1945 lists it by name but gives no details. In post-war years, another private airfield was established 3.5 miles south of Ashcroft by the Rafter Cariboo Ranch. It was a gravel strip, 2,700 feet by 75 feet. The 1967 Foster Pilot's Guide lists an airfield described as the Mesa Vista Airfield, half a mile east of the Ashcroft Railway Station at an elevation of 1,430 feet. No other details are given. Aviation author Chris Waite visited the site of Cornwall Field in the years 1999 and 2000. He found no evidence of its aviation use more than 60 years before his visit. By 1970, a new field had been built northeast of Ashcroft Manor. It is unclear if the Mesa Vista Airfield was the same location. The Ashcroft runway was 610 meters or 2,000 feet. In October 1983, the province of British Columbia gave preliminary approval to develop an airstrip at Campbell Hill. Completed in 1984, the airport was largely built by volunteers. In March 1985, the grass runway was graveled. In May, the Aero Club purchased a trailer for club premises. In September, the runway and access road were paved. The 2017 wildfire destroyed 2 hangars and a house. Airport fencing, also destroyed by the wildfire, was replaced in 2020.